Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. I got a quick backstory on this project. I already finished it and I want to tell you a little bit about it. I have a friend of mine, he's into blacksmithing, he has a little forge, and it's in his garage, and he says everything rusts, and he wanted this tool to, he keeps rusting up on him. He says, is there anything I could do? You know, he wants it painted, but he wanted the rust removed first, so I said I'll do it for him, but I'll make a little video. And then I said, I hope this video, I came so close not to uploading it, and I still have thoughts whether I should or not, but I figured somebody might get something out of this or whatever. I'm not a big fan of primitive tools, so when you watch it, please go gentle on me, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, take care. Now, a while back, one of my subscribers had asked me if it's possible I could put a finish on a blacksmithing tool. Now, when we refer to these type of tools like a blacksmithing tool, these are commonly known as primitives. And when you look up, even if you want to look these up on eBay, it's called a primitive tool. And don't let the term fool you, and I don't mean to be condescending in any way, but that's what they're called. And the reason they are called primitive is because they're homemade, and they're usually not made to very strict tolerances. They're made just to get the job done. And a blacksmith will have to usually make a lot of his own tools, like these tongs, for doing forge work. These were predominant from the 1600s all the way up to the mid 1800s. Then came the machine industry, industrial age, and we started getting tools to a much tighter tolerance, stampings and forgings and things like that, and that brought us into tools like this. Now, here's an example of a early pipe wrench, but there was a time between here and here that was a very interesting time in the tool. Now that brings us to today's project. This is the Bridge the Gap tool that took us from primitives to modern tooling. And it was just then you could see that when they started making these, they started to use more types of machinery and things like that that would make the tools to have parts that were quite interchangeable, so that, or to more tolerances, more professional. And this here is a pipe wrench, one of the early adjustable pipe wrenches, and you can see how this works with the screw, and that'll adjust this coming up and down and grab the pipe. Again, what's interesting about this tool is, like I said, this is late 1800s. They're just starting. They weren't around long, just like the time of the Old West. It didn't last as long as you would think it did, and before we went right from the primitives to this, and then boom, right into the modern tooling. So we're going to do a restoration on this. This is very close to a blacksmithing tool, and what we're going to do with this, I want you to look at the condition. You can see obviously it's some embedded rust like we always deal with. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to immerse this in vinegar, just because it just makes it that much easier on me when it's that deep, the rust. I'll let it sit for a day, and then we'll get to it. Now, before we put it in the vinegar, we're going to disassemble the wrench. A couple things we're going to do. First thing we're going to do is we took out the thumb screw, the adjustment screw. Now we're going to hit this quickly with a wire brush, just because this is a very tight fit for a 3/4 inch socket. So we're going to really just hit it quickly. You see this is swaged over the inside of that stud. So we're going to apply a little bit of heat to it once it's cleaned up, and then we're going to use the socket and a breaker bar, the nice S&K breaker bar, and we're going to, it shouldn't give us any problem, we're going to chuck this part into the vise and unscrew that. Okay, that was easy as pie, because we took a little bit of precautions. We heated up only for about 15 seconds. We did not change any color or temper anything, just enough to warm it up, mostly to get that, in case there was any rust in there. Sprayed a little penetrant oil, came right apart. Now we're going to put these in a vinegar bath, and I'll be back in a couple days. Well, it's been 2 days. Took it out of the vinegar bath, brushed it with a nylon brush to get any excess off. We can see there's a little bit of a stamping of a name there. That looks promising, although I can't read it yet, but we'll get to it. Now we're going to take it to the wire brush. You can see that little bit of, that's flash rusting. That'll come right off. But now we'll take it to the wire brush, the big wire brush, the coarse one. We'll take all these, you see the nut and everything, how this is indicative of them making them homemade. They call them wing nuts at the time, but very nice. So let's go take it to the wire brush and get it down underneath this scale. Now it's time to wire brush the nut here, and you can see this is a very difficult nut to hold on to. You could use pliers and things like that, but again, it's tough, especially when you're dealing with a wire wheel. So it's always good if you have an old nail or something, stick it through here. It just makes it that much easier to hold when you're using it. To press it against, you can always hold it like this against the brush, and it just does a nice job. So you don't, because this wire brush will take stuff, fling it out of your hands, and it will go to the deepest, darkest section of your shop that you can't find it. Okay, here we are at our post wire brush evaluation, and you know, some of these things when I film them, they look really shiny, and they say, well, you can just leave them like that. But if you look really close, you could see the pitting and the you know, the forge marks and things like that. So sometimes you see why you have to opt for paint. Now, obviously, we're not going to take this down to a polish or on the belt sand or anything, because that just wasn't the way these tools were made. What we will do is now we'll go over and put a coat of shellac on it. You see we got the threads with the Dremel. That's really important if you want to get a nice finish. Even the threads inside of the nut here, all with that Dremel brush, really works well. All these pieces came out nice. If you look over here, you can see on this side what I thought maybe was a name. Here, okay, here it is. Now, if you hold it up to the right light, unfortunately, over here you can't really see it, but it says solid steel. So it wasn't a name, it was solid steel, and you could see it under just the right light. You know, that throws a little bit of a shadow, an old incandescent light. But all the rust is off. Now we're going to wipe it down with denatured alcohol, clean everything, put a coat of shellac on it, and then we'll get to the final finish and assembly. Now that the pieces have dried nicely, what we're going to do is we're going to coat it with some black paint. But the way we're going to do it is because, again, it's a rough surface and we want it to look authentic. So we're going to take some mineral spirits and we're going to dampen a rag with mineral spirits. And then we're going to dip it into some black enamel paint and wipe it on. And that should give a nice coating to it. Okay, we're calling this wrench done. Now, I did this for a friend of mine who puts this in his garage, and it's a very high rust environment. And he wanted this thing coated in black that it wouldn't rust. And but you could see all the pitting underneath the paint and whatnot. But let me show you how this wrench works. You know, it's a very primitive design. This thumb screw moves this nut up and down, which gives you a limited motion. But I'll tell you the truth, it's not a good wrench, and I don't know why these things are revered by collectors, because I don't know. I'm not crazy about primitive tools. Let me show you how this thing works. Now, the biggest problem with pipe wrenches always was that with here we have the adjustment. Put this around here, and you can see we got a positive lock. And you can see my hand is not too far apart here. That's the most important thing. If your hand is too far apart, you know, like this, you can't grip it. So later on they came out with this, you know, slip wrench. But again, with the slip wrench, if you don't have the perfect size, now here I have it so that my hand is nice and close, but it's not within the range to tighten the wrench. The wrench will not close on it. So if I move it up one, here I can close it, but it's not in the recesses, and look how wide my hand is. So this has always been a problem. Later on with these wrenches, they bent the handles down. One going, the bottom one going up, this one going down, so that would alleviate the problem and give you a better purchase on the handle. But this is how these work, and you can see the grip here, how it grips around the pipe. Well, in closing, you could see, so this is that transitional wrench, and I'll tell you, I wasn't going to upload this video because, you know, I hate these kind of wrenches. I really am not into primitive stuff, but I thought maybe out there might be somebody that's going to be doing something and want to see how these worked or whatever. You're better off going with a later model. Stay with the 20s and up. Those wrenches are really well done, or some of the really good main brands like Billings and things like that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got something out of it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care and have a nice day. Bye-bye.